The air outside the ancient jade dragon temple was thick with the scent of incense and the heavier weight of public humiliation. Shai Jingxian stood motionless, a marble statue amidst the swirling crowd, his hand resting on the smooth, cool head of his cane. The sounds of the city were a familiar cacophony, but the voices closest to him were the ones that cut the deepest. It's been 3 years. Jingxian, his uncle, Shai Chaohui, said, his tone a wretched blend of feigned sympathy and undisguised avarice. 3 years of darkness. The board is getting restless, and heir is needed to secure the Shai family line. How can you lead a family when you can't even see your own feet? Beside him, Jingxian's cousin, Bei Yuning, chimed in, her voice as sharp and polished as the diamonds on her wrist. Uncle is right. No respectable woman would marry a blind man, let alone one burdened by our family's affliction. The inheritance requires a strong successor, not a liability. Each word was a carefully aimed dart, meant to wound his pride and underscore his helplessness. Jingxian's jaw tightened. That he offered no reply, arguing was pointless. His world was one of textures, sounds, and the hollow ache of a life lived in perpetual twilight. He felt the vibration of footsteps, the whispers of onlookers, the suffocating pity. Then chaos erupted. It was a sudden whirlwind of motion, the scent of wild herbs and mountain rain, and the soft but solid impact against his chest. He stumbled back, his cane clattering on the stone pavers. Strong, slender hands gripped his arms to steady him, a small, steady anchor in his sightless world. Before he could react, a voice clear as a temple bell and utterly devoid of fear rang out. "Husband, I finally found you." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Jingxian froze, every nerve ending firing in confusion. The hands on his arms were firm, their touch sending an unfamiliar warmth through the fine fabric of his suit. Who was this woman? What is the meaning of this? Bei Yuning shrieked, her composure shattering like fine porcelain. She lunged forward, trying to tear the girl away. "Who do you think you are? Get your filthy hands off my cousin." The girl didn't budge. "I'm his wife," she stated, her voice calm and unwavering. Jingxian could almost picture Yuning's face, contorted with rage and disbelief. "Wife? You look like you just crawled down from a mountain. Don't you know who this is? This is Shai Jingxian, CEO of the Shai Corporation." She spat the next words with venom. "Do you think a mere village girl like you can just appear and claim a place in our family? You are a shameless liar." Jingxian finally found his voice, a low, strained rasp. "Who are you?" The girl's attention shifted entirely to him. He could feel her presence, a focused energy that seemed to push back the noise of the world. "My name is Bei Yanqi, and I'm here to honor our arrangement." "Arrangement?" His uncle scoffed. "Jingxian, this is absurd. She's clearly a charlatan trying to take advantage of your condition." Ignoring them, Yanqi leaned closer. Her breath smelled faintly of mint and something earthy, like clean soil. "Your blindness is not a medical condition, it is a curse. I can heal you." A bitter, humorless laugh escaped Jingxian's lips. He had heard it all before from world-renowned specialists to back-alley mystics. Hope was a luxury he could no longer afford. "Many have tried. All have failed. They are not me," she said with uncheckable confidence. "I will make you a deal, Shai Jingxian. I will heal your eyes, right here, right now. And in return, you must fall in love with me." The proposition was so audacious, so utterly insane, that for a moment, even Yuning was speechless. The crowd murmured, their whispers a mix of ridicule and morbid curiosity. To offer a cure for the incurable was one thing. To demand love as payment was the stuff of fantasy. Jingxian felt a flicker of something he hadn't felt in years. Intrigue. This girl was either delusional or possessed a power beyond his understanding. Desperation was a powerful motivator. "And if you fail, I won't, she replied simply. Do we have a deal? He had nothing left to lose. Fine. He breathed. Do it. Without another word. Yunchi guided him to a nearby stone bench, sitting him down. The hostile energy from his relatives was palpable, but she created a small, serene bubble around them. Yuning's voice dripped with scorn. Look at the little Taoist nun, playing doctor. The best physicians in the world couldn't fix him. And this peasant girl thinks she can do it with what? Chance and good luck charms. Yunchi ignored her completely. She took Jingxin's face in her hands. Her palms were callous but gentle. She asked him to close his eyes, though to him it made no difference. He felt her thumbs press firmly against his temples, then trace a complex pattern over his eyelids. A cool, fragrant balm was applied, its scent sharp and clarifying. He heard her murmur something in a language he didn't recognize, not a prayer, but a command. It was a low, resonant vibration that seemed to sink directly into his skull. The air grew thick with anticipation. The mockery from his family slowly died down, replaced by a tense, waiting silence. They were all expecting a humiliating failure. Another cruel joke at his expense. He felt the strange, tingling heat spread behind his eyes, a sensation that was neither painful nor pleasant, but utterly new. The pressure built, a dam about to break, and then it shattered. Yunchi removed her hands. Open your eyes. Husband. He obeyed, expecting the same familiar, suffocating darkness. But this time was different. A blurry assault of light, painful and overwhelming, forced him to squint. He blinked, and blinked again. Shapes began to sharpen from the milky haze. The grey stone of the temple steps, the deep green of a nearby bonsai tree, the crimson of Baiyuning's silk dress, her face a mask of utter shock. Then, his gaze found the face directly in front of him. Almond-shaped eyes, clear and deep as a mountain spring, stared back at him. Her skin was fair, her features delicate but imbued with an ancient strength. She wasn't classically beautiful in the way Yuning was, but she was compelling, real. It was the first human face he had truly seen in 3 years. A single, shaky breath escaped his lungs. The words came out as a raw, disbelieving whisper. I can see. Stunned silence fell like a shroud over the temple entrance. Shai Jiahui's jaw hung open. Yuning's perfectly painted lips were parted in a silent O of disbelief. The impossible had happened. Yunchi simply smiled, a small, knowing curve of her lips. Your blindness was a symptom, she explained, her voice now the only sound in the frozen tableau. It was caused by the pressure of evil that clings to your family line. I have lifted it from your eyes. She gently placed a hand over his heart. But this is only the first step. The curse still affects your heart. I can heal that, too. Her eyes met his, now clear and focused, and held his gaze. Remember our deal, Shai Jingxian. Remember our marriage promise. The air in Shai Jingxian's bedroom was thick with the scent of imported roses, a cloying sweetness that did little to warm the cavernous space. They Yunchi, dressed not in a traditional wedding gown, but in a simple, flowing white dress that made her look more like a forest sprite than a CEO's wife, tossed a final handful of crimson petals onto the silk duvet. She struck a playful pose, one hand on her hip, and aimed her phone at the bed. Perfect, she chirped, snapping a picture. The bridal chamber is now officially photogenic. Shai Jingxian stood near the window, his posture as rigid as the steel frame of the skyscraper outside. His sightless eyes were aimed in her direction, but his focus was entirely internal. He could hear the soft rustle of her dress, the light thud of her bare feet on the plush carpet, the infuriatingly cheerful clicks of her phone. Each sound was an intrusion, a note of chaos in the tightly controlled symphony of his life. Yunchi set her phone aside and glided toward him, a voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Husband, the decorations are complete. The moon is high. According to tradition. Shouldn't we, fulfill our duties? She reached out, her fingers tentatively brushing his arm. His reaction was instantaneous. He flinched away as if her touch were a live current, his hand flying to his chest. A sharp, violent gasp tore from his lips, and the color drained from his already pale face. He stumbled back, his knuckles white as he pressed against his sternum, his breathing ragged and shallow. Not now, his mind screamed, not in front of her. The familiar, terrifying pressure was building, a vice of ice and fire squeezing his heart. He saw flashes behind his eyes, not of light, but of pure, suffocating darkness. Yunshi's playful demeanor vanished, replaced by a sharp, clinical focus. She was at his side in a second, not panicking but assessing. "Breathe," she commanded, her voice low and steady. Her fingers pressed firmly against the acupuncture point on his wrist. "Breathe with me, Jingxian. In and out." He fought for control, the spasm in his chest slowly, grudgingly receding. The attack was a phantom, a ghost of the curse's full power, but it was enough to leave him trembling and slick with a cold sweat. After a long moment, the tightness eased, and the world settled back into a muted rhythm of sound and shadow. He straightened up, shrugging off her supporting hand. The wall around him was back, twice as thick as before. "I'm fine," he stated, his voice a shard of ice. He turned his head toward the far side of the room. "I will be sleeping on the sofa." The finality in his tone was a physical blow. Yunchi watched him go, his careful, measured steps a testament to a vulnerability he would die before admitting. Disappointment pricked at her, sharp and unwelcome, but it was quickly consumed by a fierce wave of determination. His heart isn't just the curse, it's broken from years of pain and isolation, she thought, her fists clenching at her sides. "He can't accept me because he can't even accept himself. I have to cure him completely." 2 days later, the air was thin and crisp, smelling of pine and damp earth. The winding stone path up the mountain to Shrinking Temple was steep and unforgiving, crowded with pilgrims seeking blessings. Shai Jingxian, dressed in practical outdoor gear, leaned heavily on his cousin, Shai Zion, his face set in a grim mask of endurance. Every step was a carefully navigated challenge. The air at the entrance of Shrinking Temple hummed with a festive reverence, thick with the scent of sandalwood and blooming magnolias. Crimson lanterns swayed from the curved eaves of the ancient gatehouse, their silk tassels dancing in the gentle mountain breeze. It was a day of celebration, a day for the temple's enigmatic and revered watcher. This sacred peace was shattered by the purr of a German engine. A gleaming black sedan slid to a stop, its tires crunching on the gravel with an insolent sound. The door opened, and a woman in a Chanel tweed suit stepped out, her stiletto heels a sharp, aggressive contrast to the hallowed ground. This was Bei Yuning, her face a mask of practiced superiority. She was followed by her aunt, a woman whose smile was as thin as over-plucked eyebrows, clutching a jewel-encrusted handbag like a weapon. Behind them, assistants began unloading boxes wrapped in ostentatious gold full ginseng aged for a century, rarities worth more than a car. A jade sculpture that shimmered with cold light. "We are here for the Watcher's wedding banquet," Yuning announced, her voice pitched to carry across the courtyard, loud enough to ensure everyone knew the Bei family had arrived. She scanned the assembled disciples with a dismissive air. "Auntie and I felt we had to come and offer our congratulations, especially hearing who the groom is." She paused, a smirk playing on her lips. The blind muster of the Shai family. How charitable of the Watcher to bind herself to such a man. "I suppose even temple masters must do their part for the less fortunate," her aunt tittered in agreement, her gaze sweeping the area until it landed on a quiet corner near the main hall. There stood Bei Yunshi, her simple white dress a stark contrast to Yuning's designer attire. her hand resting gently on Shai Jingxian's arm. Yuning's eyes narrowed, a flash of venomous recognition in them. You. She spat, pointing a perfectly manicured finger. The disciples, who had been preparing to greet the generous benefactors, froze. What is this country bumpkin doing here, and with him? She strode forward, her heels clicking an angry rhythm on the stone pavers. She stopped a few feet from them, her expression a contortion of disgust and triumph. Unbelievable, the gall of some people. I came here to honor the true temple master, and I find this impostor trying to steal her identity. Guards, she shrieked. Seize this fraud and her blind accessory. Throw them out. Shai Jingxian's body went rigid. He couldn't see the contempt on Yuning's face. He could hear it in every syllable. Feel the sudden shift in the atmosphere from festive to hostile. He instinctively tightened his grip on Yanqi's arm. A silent shield. The temple disciples hesitated. The Bei family were significant donors, their portraits hanging in the hall of benefactors. Yuning's confidence was absolute, her wealth undeniable. They looked from her expensive, commanding presence to Yanqi's plain, serene one. Doubt, like a poison, began to seep into their minds. Who was this girl, really? She had appeared out of nowhere, claiming a title no one had seen her earn. What are you waiting for? Yuning snapped, seeing their indecision. Do you want the Bei family to withdraw its funding? She is a charlatan. Get rid of them. Coded into action. Two junior disciples stepped forward, their faces a mixture of apology and grim duty. Miss, please. One of them began, reaching for Yanqi's shoulder. Before his fingers could make contact, Yanqi moved. It wasn't a large movement, just a slight turn of her body, placing herself more squarely in front of Jingxian. Her expression remained placid, but her eyes held a new, chilling light. Don't touch him, she said, her voice soft yet carrying an authority that made the disciples flinch back. Still pretending, Yuning scoffed, crossing her arms. You're nothing but a village girl who learned a few cheap tricks. A faint smile touched Yanqi's lips. It did not reach her eyes. A cheap trick, you say? She raised her right hand, her fingers moving in the air with fluid, deliberate grace. She traced a complex symbol that seemed to pull the very light from the air toward it. A low hum vibrated through the stones of the courtyard, and a talisman materialized in front of her. It was not made of paper, but of pure, shimmering golden energy, pulsing with a power so ancient and profound it felt like the mountain itself was holding its breath. The air grew heavy, crackling with contained force. The disciples who had been moving forward stumbled back as if struck, their faces draining of all color. The arrogant sneers on their faces melted into pure, unadulterated shock. To the master's seal of command, one of them stammered, his voice trembling with awe and terror. Only the grandmother and the true watcher can conjure. The golden talisman hovered before Yanqi, casting a warm, unwavering light on her calm face. She met Yuning's stunned, disbelieving gaze. The power emanating from the seal was a palpable thing, a pressure that made it hard to breathe, a silent testament to a legitimacy that no amount of money could buy. You believe I am an impostor, Yanqi said, her voice cutting through the stunned silence, each word a perfectly shaped shard of ice. You ordered them to throw me out. Fine. She took a step forward, the light of the talisman illuminating the unwavering steel in her spine. I will stand right here. If you truly believe I am a fraud, then come. Break my leg. I dare you. Yuning paled, her carefully constructed bravado crumbling into dust. The challenge was absolute. A gauntlet thrown with the full weight of the temple's 1,000-year history. To strike the true master was a sacrilege from which there was no recovery. Just as the standoff reached its peak, a path cleared through the crowd of onlookers. Two figures emerged, their presence immediately commanding the courtyard. The first was a man with the refined air of a scholar, his hands delicate yet exuding a frightening stillness. Ling Yu, the legendary ghost hand doctor. The second was taller, his shoulders broad and his gaze sharp as a blade, his every step silent and measured. Ling Chuan, the revered saber saint. They were the temple's most senior disciples, living legends whose names alone inspired or unfear. They ignored everyone, the gaping disciples, the cowering aunt, and the pale, trembling Bei Yuning. Their eyes were fixed solely on Yanqi. They walked directly to her, stopping a respectful distance away, and then, in a smooth, synchronized motion that silenced the last whisper in the courtyard, they bowed. It was not a simple nod, but a deep, formal bow from the waist, an archaic gesture of profound fealty. Master, Ling Chuan's voice was a low, resonant baritone that echoed with unwavering loyalty. Ling Yu lifted his head slightly, a small, genuine smile gracing his lips as he looked at Yanqi. Junior sister, he greeted warmly, his voice carrying the final, irrefutable confirmation. Welcome home. The heavy scent of aged sandalwood hung in the air of Shren King Temple's great hall, thick and suffocating. A profound silence had fallen over the assembly, broken only by the sharp, reverent voices of the temple's two most senior disciples, Ling Yu and Ling Chuan. They stood on either side of Bei Yanqi, their ceremonial grey robes a stark contrast to her simple cotton blouse. For 3 years, Ling Yu's voice resonated off the carved wooden pillars. Our master chose to live in seclusion, seeking not glory, but a deeper understanding of the Tao. We were sworn to secrecy, Ling Chuan continued, his gaze sweeping over the stunned faces of the disciples and guests. The rumors you heard were not myths. The miracle healer of the West Mountain, that was our master, who cultivated the 7-star lotus to cure the incurable plague. The shadow fist who dismantled the Azure Dragon Gang in a single night without a single weapon. Our master, perfecting the formless style passed down through generations. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. The one who commanded the rains to end the great drought 3 summers ago. Who do you think that was? Each declaration was a hammer blow to the careful construct of lies built by Bei Yuning and her family. Their faces, once masks of smug triumph, had curdled into a grotesque tableau of disbelief. The aunt's jaw hung slack, her powdered face a ghastly white. The uncle's portly frame seemed to shrink, his eyes darting around as if seeking an escape route that no longer existed. But it was Bei Yuning who looked truly broken. The village girl, the impostor she had spent weeks humiliating, was the very legend she had tried to impersonate. The foundation of her world had just turned to dust beneath her feet. Across the hall, Shai Jingxian stood motionless, the world still a dizzying, brilliant kaleidoscope to his newly opened eyes. But his focus was singular. He saw her, truly saw her for the first time. Not the quiet, sometimes stubborn woman who brought him herbal tonics and spoke of fate, but a figure of immense, unyielding power. The light from the high windows caught the sharp line of her jaw, the absolute resolve in her dark, clear eyes. He had felt her strength before in her touch, in the quiet confidence of her voice, but seeing it manifested was like witnessing a storm gather in a calm sky, or wild with a sudden, sharp pang of concern. She was one person standing against so many, yet she seemed more solid than the ancient temple itself. In that moment, watching her command the room with nothing but her presence, a flicker of something warm and fiercely protective ignited in his chest. This was his wife. The realization that had dawned on Jingxian now swept through the ranks of the disciples. A wave of shame washed over them, their earlier mockery and hostility turning to ash in their mouths. One by one, then in a great, rustling wave, they fell to their knees. The sound was a percussive beat of surrender, of thudding cloth and wood. Master, the cry was a unified chorus of desperation. We were blind, forgive our ignorance. Bei Yanqi raised a hand, and the pleas quieted instantly. Her gaze was not triumphant, but weary, as if disappointed by a fundamental human failing. "Rise," she commanded, her voice calm and even. "My appearance is my own choice. The robes of the master are a burden I do not wear unless necessary. Truth does not need adornment." She turned her attention from her followers, her eyes locking on to her cowering relatives. The temperature in the hall seemed to drop. "Uncle, Aunt," the familial titles dripped with ice. "You used the name of Shren King Temple to satisfy your greed. You leveraged its reputation to secure wealth and status. And worse," her voice hardened, a cutting edge of steel emerging, "you bullied a man who was already suffering. A man under my protection." She took a step forward, her simple shoe silent on the stone floor. "You have forgotten the first principle of this sacred place: compassion. Therefore, this place will now forget you." Her pronouncement was absolute, leaving no room for appeal. "As of this moment, you are stripped of all duties and associations. You are no longer welcome within these walls. You are expelled. Leave now." The aunt let out a strangled sob, but the uncle simply stared, defeated. As they were escorted away by the disciples, their faces a ruin of public disgrace, Bai Yuning began to tremble, a frantic, desperate energy seizing her. She opened her mouth to plead, to bargain, but only a choked gasp escaped. "And you, cousin," Yanchi said, a voice softening to a dangerously quiet pitch. "You crave power so badly you were willing to steal a life that wasn't yours. You spoke of poisons and curses to intimidate my husband. You should have been more careful with your words." As if summoned by the pronouncement, a single, angry red welt appeared on Yuning's flawless cheek. She gasped, touching it with a trembling finger. Another erupted on her neck, then a third on her forehead. Within seconds, her skin was erupting in a horrifying, disfiguring rash, weeping crimson patches that spread like wildfire across her face and down her arms. "What is this?" Yuning shrieked, her voice thin with terror as she clawed at her own skin. "A special cultivation of mine," Yanchi explained, her tone purely academic. "A topical toxin derived from the horn of the water rhinoceros. It is activated by extreme emotional distress, fear, anger, humiliation. A poison for the soul." You might say the last vestige of Yuning's pride shattered. She collapsed to the floor, scrambling on her hands and knees toward Yanchi, the beautiful silk of her dress dragging through the dust. "Please, master, cousin, I was wrong. I'll do anything. Give me the antidote." Her pleas were hysterical, her meticulously crafted image dissolving into a weeping, blotchy mess. Yanchi looked down at her, her expression unreadable. For a long moment, the only sounds were Yuning's desperate sobs and the distant chime of a temple bell. Jingxian watched, his heart pounding, seeing the cold, precise justice of the woman he had married. Finally, Yanchi spoke, her voice leaving no room for hope. "Consequences are the truest form of teaching. You have earned this lesson." She looked away, her gaze sweeping back over the hall. "There is indeed an antidote, and I am the only one in the world who possesses it. But I will not interfere with your fate." The air in the hidden courtyard of Shren King Temple was thick with the scent of ancient sandalwood and rain-washed stone. Sunlight, filtered through the gnarled branches of a 1,000-year-old ginkgo tree, dappled the ground in shifting patterns of gold. It was a place of profound stillness, removed from the city's ceaseless hum and the shy family's suffocating drama. Here, Bai Yanchi was not just a village girl or Shai Jingshan's controversial new wife. Here, she was home. She knelt on a silk cushion before a low, dark wood table, her movements imbued with a serene, almost ritualistic grace. In her hands, she held a small, celadon green porcelain bowl. Steam, carrying an aroma both earthy and faintly sweet, rose from the dark, jade green liquid within. This was the final piece, the culmination of generations of knowledge, brewed from herbs that grew only in the most sacred, and touched parts of the mountain. Shai Jingxian sat opposite her, his posture straight, his hands resting on his knees. The bandages were gone from his eyes. For days, his vision had been returning in flashes, blurs of color, indistinct shapes swimming in a sea of gray. But now, the world was slowly, painstakingly sharpening into focus. He could see the intricate embroidery on her sleeves, the soft curve of her jaw, the unwavering calm in her dark, luminous eyes. "Drink this," Yanqi said, her voice as gentle as the temple chimes carried on the wind. She slid the bowl across the table. "It will fortify your heart meridian, clearing the last of the poison's residue. I promised you a long and healthy life, Jingxian. I will not fail." He reached for the bowl, his fingers tracing its smooth, cool rim. He looked from the mysterious liquid to the woman who had brought it, the woman who had barged into his life with an outrageous claim and an unshakable will. He had thought her an opportunist, a charlatan, a pawn in his cousin's games. He had fought her, dismissed her, and yet she had stayed. She had shielded him, defended him, and now was healing him. Lifting the bowl, he drank the decoction in one smooth draught. It was warm, bitter on the tongue, but with a sweet aftertaste that bloomed in his chest, spreading a gentle, invigorating heat through his entire body. He felt the deep, profound shift within him, a lightness, a clarity he hadn't felt since he was a child. The persistent, dull ache that had been his heart's constant companion for years simply dissolved. He closed his eyes, not from blindness, but from the sheer, overwhelming weight of revelation. A memory, long buried under years of cynical pragmatism, surfaced. As a desperate young man, long before his sight had completely failed, he had sought every possible cure. He had heard whispers from old family retainers and scholars of esoteric medicine, stories of a legendary healer, the guardian of Shrenking Mountain, a woman said to possess a divine connection to nature. They called her Fairy Balawo, a mythical figure who could brew remedies that defied modern science. He had spent a fortune trying to find her, sending expeditions into the mountains, only to be met with dead ends and the quiet, pitying smiles of the local villagers. It was, he'd concluded, a fool's errand, a fairy tale. He opened his eyes and stared at his wife. The simple cotton dress, the unassuming demeanor, it had all been a perfect disguise. The clues had been there all along. Her uncanny knowledge of herbs, a deep respect for the mountain, her quiet authority that had silenced even the most arrogant elders. His breath hitched. "Fairy Balawo," he whispered, the name feeling foreign and yet intimately familiar on his tongue. Yanqi's expression remained serene, but a knowing softness entered her eyes. She gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. The full weight of his realization crashed down on him. All those years of searching, of chasing a ghost, of clinging to a sliver of impossible hope. He had been looking for a myth, but the myth had come looking for him. "It was you," he said, his voice thick with an emotion that was part awe, part regret, part boundless gratitude. "All this time I was searching for a legend, and it was you." He reached across the table, his hand covering hers. Her skin was warm, her grip surprisingly strong. "Yanqi," the words caught in his throat.